Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Jay and Mike. What's up, gentlemen?
I have bee toxin running through my veins at a level that is hitherto unexplored.
Yeah. When we got on, the first thing I said, I go, "You feel like you have any bee superpowers yet? Like, is this one of those scenarios?" I don't even know what the power would be. Like, he could smell soda from several feet away and come bother me about it. Hey, Jay, can I have a sip of that soda? Get out of here, Mike.
Mike was regaling us before the cast about how he got stung by how many bees would you say?
I have at least 30 welts from stings presently on my body. That's how many I could count.
I need you to call me though. Like, if you have like this overwhelming desire for sugar, like tonight or something, or like I want to document on the blog your transformation into Bee Man.
Okay, all right, we'll do. Is that
like, you're like wearing a yellow shirt and you're like eating just like spoonfuls of sugar, like,
yeah,
let us know.
Yellow shirt, some black shorts.
Yeah,
be like, what? This is what I wanted to wear. I don't.
Is there like a Bee-Man in Marvel, like Ant-Man? Like, I know there's an Ant-Man, but there's no bee superhero. I guess it's the Wasp, right?
Yeah,
the Wasp is probably the closest.
Most of the bee related, like anything I can recall, like from anime or comics, it's just like they just control lots of bees. Sure. But like, I'd like to see you actually get like some powers of a bee. Like,
I'd take wings.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Just don't sting anyone because you'll die. Like, after that, that's like, you're just one shot. That's it. That's your big
one
super
shot,
move.
One kill. Make it count.
Yeah. You're the one that
seem like
dies,
a great
though.
superpower.
I think it depends on if you use your powers for good, you know?
Yeah, but like, I mean, there's no guarantee that your target is going to die.
No, they may not be allergic.
Yeah, I mean,
like, think survived.
About right. Think about those 30 plus bees that all died to deliver you your current discomfort.
Some slightly annoying welts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he died like he lived, being slightly annoying. Bye, Mike.
Victory.
All right. Well, we are going to talk about Legion today, which unfortunately has no bees involved.
But it does involve lots of small things that poke and prod you. Yeah.
Yes, it does. As well as a duck and a baby duck, which so we Lone Star Open was this weekend. Yeah.
What the hell?
Like, we're gonna have to.
Kyle had a stroke live on.
There are some good Lone Star Open stories that have nothing to do with Legion from this weekend.
Oh, okay.
We'll leave it at that for now. I'll tell the duck one on the cast. Some of the others are less savory. Let's put it that, less heartfelt.
NSFW, if you will.
They're not quite NSFW, but they're
okay.
Yeah. Stories that should stay where they were generated.
Yes,
what
exactly.
Stays in LSO. What happens in LSO stays in LSO. Right?
It was a little bit. Yes. But let's do housekeeping first, and then I will tell the duck story, and then we'll at some point probably talk about Legion today.
Ducks.
Housekeeping.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk housekeeping. I'm going to keep it short. Join us on Patreon. We are going to do some stuff. I'm going to give away the Tempest cards. We're going to print those out. I've got to put this poll up. I got to do it like now. Tomorrow. But basically asking what people want, whether they want errata cards or if they want Tempest or whatever. So if you join us on Patreon, you get access to our Discord server, which gives you access to us. You can ask us questions that maybe you don't want to put on the general Legion Discord for fear that someone's going to make fun of you or that someone's going to troll you or something like that may happen in a larger Discord is still going to happen in our Discord, just in a slightly less way. No, I'm just kidding.
It's just be a smaller audience.
Yeah. There just won't be as tens of thousands of embarrassment. So no, we talk a lot about our list, what we're doing. We share a lot of our hobby stuff. It's a good little community we have going on our Discord. So you get access to that at any dollar level on our Patreon. So if you just come and like do $1 a month, which absolutely helps us, that would be great, because we not only the staff that we have now, but we're looking to put on more staff for writing. We want to write more about Shatterpoint, stuff like that. So we pay our writers and our staff. So that's where that money goes. And plus, once in a while I send you free stuff, which is great. I think that's it for housekeeping. I'll keep it short this week.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry, one more thing. To all of you that don't like it when I talk about Patreon, too damn bad. Deal with it. I don't care. Go. You know what? I'll tell you what. I'll create a Patreon level that you could pay for that'll stop me from talking about Patreon. Okay?
You can, but you're not going to stop. I don't say that.
I can make it $1 amount. I could make it $1
$100,000.
Yeah,
there's a number.
Yeah.
I how when they ask people like, do you have a number? Like, and most people are like, no, I don't. I always have it. There is always a number I have.
That's
if somebody wants to like single-handedly cover all of our costs, which there are for content creation. I assume Jay would probably stop talking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Email me at contact@thefifthtrooper.com. Tell me your number and what your offering is, and we'll have a little business discussion. Not a problem. I'll stop talking about Patreon.
Really though, it's a great way to support us if you like our content. So
I'm just curious to you, whoever you are, sitting out there right now, thinking to yourself, why is Jay talking about Patreon so much? How do you think I pay people, man?
It's not just paying people too. It's like you have to
our server, the podcast hosting fees. Like, dude, there's so many costs to this, and we are so appreciative of all our Patreon members, and not appreciative of you, commenter. Not at all.
That's not true.
No.
They listen to us. I am appreciative of them.
They said they were going to stop listening because I talked about Patreon so much.
Stopping listening. That's like
I hope you do.
Veiled threat.
I hope you do.
Still click the download button though, just so we can.
Yeah.
Just
there you go.
I don't even care. Watch and click down, like
I mean, look at it this way. Every time you comment that you hate the Patreon stuff, that bumps our numbers. Comments are good.
Yeah.
Comments are good.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Thanks.
That's my talk for today. My name's Jay Shalansky, and this has been my TED Talk.
All right. How about we move on to the news?
Welcome to In the News.
Okay.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
I wasn't really ready for that, but yeah, let's talk about news.
Yeah, is there news to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, LSO.
Our boy.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Another fifth trooper win in the annals of history.
And another for Austin Miller specifically.
Yep.
I think this is his third frontline event that he's won this year. Rocky Top, Atlantic City, and now Lone Star. So
starting to feel like I gotta go to these tournaments just to give this man a fight. Like, what's going on?
To stop him. To stop this young Florida man.
Right. From let Florida hog all the glory. They're supposed to be crazy down there. I don't get it. What's the deal?
Yeah, the final, in fact, was two Florida players. Michael Shaw was the other in the final, and he's also from Florida. So
they've got a really good scene coming up down there. Congratulations, Austin. I'm sure he's going to talk about it. He is one of the three hosts of the Fifth Trooper podcast now. So I'm sure he'll talk about it then. He's also on our live show Wednesday nights, so he may talk about it then as well. So I'm sure you'll be able to hear from Austin. But yeah, congratulations to him. I'm so glad he's part of the team and bringing in the W's like the rest of you guys.
Yeah, with Separatists this time, no less, right? I don't think he didn't play Separatists last time, right?
He did.
Oh,
yeah.
Maybe it was a different list or something. Was he playing Asajj last time?
It was similar. Yeah, it was Asajj, Cad Bane. This time he cut Asajj and he bumped up the Magnas. So it was Cad Bane, triple Magnas, and a bunch of B1s with like repair bots and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good man.
Yeah, it's an effective list. Magnas are durable. He had him backed up by repair bots.
You know, those Magnas really did some work for him in the
They
last
sure did.
Games.
Why don't we let's just launch into it? Because I actually I casted the semifinal and the final, both of which were streamed on Yavin Base. So if you want to check those out, I'm sure David will have some videos of those up at some point.
Well, he did it on YouTube, so they should already be there.
Okay.
He generally will cut them and also like segment them into if you just like want to snapshot a game later on. But
damn, that's a lot of work. Good for him.
It is a lot of work, but he's really good about that. So
yeah, and he does, and his setup is great. It's been actually a while since I've casted with David, but the setup is like, it's really sophisticated now. He's got the overhead cameras. He's got like controllable, it like can zoom in and like move around. The blue screen dice tray where the dice like spray over the screen instead of having like a separate camera. Yeah, it's all very impressive. Anyway, yeah. So Austin played against Ahsoka back to back in the semifinal and the final. And both of those games were essentially clinched by Magna Guard. Not like fully one-shotting Ahsoka, but like mostly one-shotting Ahsoka. I think in both cases, Ahsoka had 2 wounds. But yeah, there were 2 key moments in that game where Magna Guard rolled in. You got like a 8-hit rollout. Ahsoka had a dodge, spent it to bring it down to 7, and then rolled like a bunch of surges, which of course don't do you any good anymore. Certainly don't do Ahsoka any good anymore. So yeah, that Ahsoka died both times. It happened in back-to-back games.
Good. Die Jedi users.
I almost think,
but not Yoda, Anakin, Obi-Wan.
They're the true Jedi.
Or Grievous either.
Yeah.
Actually, Grievous would have saved those too, because he would have been able to convert those surges with block.
It's almost comfort. I don't know how you guys feel, but like for me, when I'm in a pivotal game like that, like a final game, it's almost comforting when I face like almost the same list that I've already faced in that day, or that because it's like, oh, I know what to do. Yeah, I got it. You know what I mean? Like there's a level of comfort to that because you're like, yeah, I beat that. I bet you I could do this same thing. Or I know their tricks now, right? Like if it's the first time you really saw it on the table, you're like, oh, okay, I know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, it was actually really impressive, particularly in the final, because Austin was facing against Michael Shaw, who was running an Ahsoka Cassian gun line with 2 FD turrets. And they ended up, I didn't quite catch exactly how the vetoes went, but they ended up on Long March hostage, and they were both at 800 points. So because of how the new tiebreak system works, it basically the short version is if they had a draw, meaning they both scored the same number of victory points and the same number of kill points, which of course at the start of the game is 0-0 kill points. If they had an actual true draw, which is possible now, then it would go to the tournament tiebreaks, the first of which is SOS, and Michael had better SOS.
Wow.
So essentially that meant in this game, in the final for Lone Star Open, Michael was started as the defender because of the tournament tiebreaks. And Austin had to like attack into him, which he did. On the first turn, he got like a Cad Bane shot on K2 and did 3 wounds to him. He managed to catch his hostage to kill the hostage on turn 2, and then basically forced Ahsoka to like do something. She went out and went after Cad Bane, killed Cad Bane, but then Ahsoka was kind of like out there to get shot, which is what did the 2 wounds, and then the Magna Guard charged her and she died, and that was kind of it after that. Because at that point Austin was up on points, and then he kind of just retreated with everything. But yeah, it was one of those situations where like going head first into a Cassian FD turret Ahsoka gun line feels pretty intimidating, but Austin managed to navigate it pretty well. So we can maybe save the weird tiebreak draw rules for another cast, because I have a whole thing on that.
I was gonna say I have some questions.
Yeah, I mean, I explained it in detail, I think, on David's stream, because it was extremely relevant at the beginning of that game, and the players also, they knew this before the game started.
Okay, that was where I was headed. This wasn't like they got through battle cards and then realized. Okay.
No, because they were both smartly like, look, we're both at 800 points, you know, and they had a conversation with the EO and the judges, and we're like, what do we do? And the EO and the judges were like, I don't know, let's figure it out. So they looked at the official tournament rules, and the conclusion basically was that it becomes a true draw, and that means their records are both the same at 5 and 0 and 1. So they're, you know, 1-2, and then you go to the first tiebreak, and then the first tiebreak is SOS, and a couple of Austin's opponents dropped, so he had a slightly worse SOS.
Interesting.
So yeah, and that goes all the way back to essentially affect who is the, you know, we call them the beatdown and the control in previous terms, but like who's the one that has to make something happen, and who's the one that can defend in the actual game because of the tournament tiebreaks. Because
that's really good that everybody knew. That makes me happy,
because I'm gonna be honest, I definitely have had that situation come up, I guess, but I didn't actually know that SOS was the breaker. I just assumed that I had to kill something because we were gonna draw. Like,
so it is. I think in previous tournaments, the EOs have said in advance, basically, like, there's not going to be any draws. If you have a true draw, we're going to roll a dice, or you're both going to take a loss. Like, that's not like an acceptable outcome. We're going to basically just, you know, I mean, people routinely ignore the silly time limit thing part of the tournament regs. So they're also basically saying that draws aren't possible, and the EOs of previous tournaments have done that.
Yep.
The ones for LSO, since this was a World Open qualifier, decided to basically be like, no, we got to use
make it official, as clean as possible,
right?
Okay.
Which, you know, obviously that's totally 100% their call. So they used how it's supposed to be done in the tournament regs, and that's the answer. But I think Mike, it's probably not come up before, because this might be the first time where they've actually decided to like use the draw rules.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. I definitely, like, I heard you talking about it on cast, and like it made sense, but I was also like, okay.
Yeah.
And again, we don't need to talk about it any further, but I definitely that is a discussion that probably should happen at some point.
It's
with the community at large.
Right. There needs to be a better way to resolve that, because affecting how a game is going to play out based on previously existing tournament tiebreaks,
and maybe more
to decide a tournament the winner.
Yeah, the only time this comes up is the finals, because that's the only time that it really truly matters, right? Am I off base on that? Because if you draw in an earlier round, you can't make the finals anymore. Probably.
I think it depends, because, for example, if you have like a, you know, top 8, you have like a 64-person tournament, and then a top 8 go to a cut kind of situation. You could have a situation where it's like you've got 8 matches in the final round of a tournament, right? Okay. And 7 of those matches, somebody wins. So then you have 7 3-0s. And then that last match is a true draw. And then you have 2 more players that are 2 and 0 and 1. Both of those players would be ranked above all of the 2 and 1s.
Yep. Yeah. That's
because
fair.
they don't have
whoever
a loss.
has a better SOS
hold on.
Advance.
Just so I can wrap my head around this. What are the actual odds of killing the same amount of point? Like, I don't, isn't it a true draw?
100% if neither player does anything.
Oh, well, right. And that's the thing. This is basically what the conversation.
If you're not playing,
is based around the fact that this forces one player to basically be old blue player under the old rules.
Okay.
Essentially, like it's giving one person the like bid advantage that we were used to having for the majority of Legion's lifetime because of your SOS.
I gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, functionally it means that, like, in this situation, for example, so Michael would be the one that would be in position to win the tournament if they drew. Michael essentially has 800 points and Austin has 799 for purposes of tie breaks. If you want to talk about it, how it works under the new rules.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But you would essentially have to not play Legion.
Well,
we've had this conversation numerous times in the past.
All right.
No, if both players, like, it's hostage exchange, right? Both players get their hostages back. No units die. It's 2-0 for both players, or it's 2-2 rather, than Michael wins, right?
It allows Michael to basically not have to play the game.
Well, it allows him to play defensively.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understood.
He's got to get his hostage back still.
Yes.
But
understood.
He's not the one that has to change the status quo. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
It's like old VAPs, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just like going, what?
Yeah, you're good.
When the hell has that ever even happened?
Yeah, every game starts as a tie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
okay.
It's
you don't
both
need
players.
I got
yeah,
it.
yeah. Both players still have to play, but one player it has to be more aggressive than the other typically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, you got those Magnus in there.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and before that, he got Cad Bane in there. It was actually a really interesting play
It was a good bait.
It was a very good bait. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think it was an intentional bait, but it ended up working out in his favor.
Sometimes that be how it goes, you know?
Yep. Yeah, it was kind of a side effect, really, of
Yeah.
the play that he was making rather than an intentional bait, I think. But,
right. Nice.
Yeah. So congrats to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Separatists can still make some good lists. I think most of them have Cad Bane in them. And probably
okay.
But
the top 8 of this tournament I found very interesting. Generally.
Yeah, I feel like yeah.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I mean, I didn't get a good chance to like really take a scrub of what everybody brought.
Mm-hmm.
There were, I mean, Empire was the most represented faction. There were
like at the tournament at large.
Yeah. But it was a pretty even spread overall. Like, it was fairly close between Empire, Republic, and Rebels. So just based on that, I don't think it's that weird. There were 4 Rebels in the top 8.
There were 4 Rebels in the top 8, which I had thought and was
and 2 Empire, I think.
Yeah, I thought the fact that half the top 8 was Rebels is a big deal. Considering where we have kind of how well we've seen Rebels do, and also like kind of what we thought the positioning of like Ewoks and stuff would be coming into this tournament, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I mean, Cassian was already good, I think, before the points changes. We've said this before, but then he got 10 points off. He's a good fit for this meta.
Yep.
You know, the combination of marksman, pierce, and high velocity. Ahsoka, I think, is probably the third, like, in my opinion, playable Force user behind Yoda and Anakin.
Not Kenobi? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
this is going to be a hot take, but I think Kenobi is more playable than Yoda, but we can table that. Anyhow.
Anyway, would you agree that Ahsoka is one of the top 3 most playable Force users?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't put Yoda up there. But
okay,
yes.
that's fair.
Yeah.
But
it looks like what was it? 21 Empire, 15 Rebels, 16 Republic, 3 Separatists.
Yeah.
And it looks like, I can't see the number, but it looks like probably like 8 mercenaries.
Yeah.
Which would include Ewoks, because they're a mercenary squad, not a rebel squad.
Is that how Game Uplink breaks it out?
Game Uplink, they're rebels.
They're rebels in Game Uplink? Oh, okay.
They are. Because I'm pretty sure Neil Junko is playing Ewoks. Yes.
Yeah, I'm quite sure he was.
Oh, we got him as rebels.
Yeah.
Why is that, Kyle?
Well, he beat me on day 1. So congrats to Neil. He was one of 2 Bright True Village players. So he was the one with the 3D printed Ewoks.
Nice.
But it was a full army of Ewoks. And yeah, I guess I can talk about my game against Neil. So at the last minute, I pivoted from Empire from Boba Iden to Republic.
I'm smelling a little bit of regret, but continue.
Well, it's complicated because I immediately was vindicated in my decision in the first game of the day when I faced triple Dark Troopers.
Feeling good in the neighborhood. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Which Anakin shredded with saber throw.
Oh, he's so good when it comes to that. As long as you got through. Yeah.
Yeah. I only got like one RPS fire support off, but it was enough to chunk one of his big squads.
Is that the first time you've ever done that?
Yes. It was
How
glorious.
Satisfied was that?
It's
it feels really good.
Yeah, and then I did it. I played against a saber tank. I played one game in the redemption bracket on Sunday, and it was against saber tank, and I two-shotted it with saber throw RPS fire support. Literally, 5 wounds the first time, 4 on the second one, and it was dead.
Just like last first hit.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. And it was one of those things too, like you could tell, like when I did the last part of the last first, the first time I did it, and I did 5 wounds to that saber one shot, that like, you know, like you can tell when somebody has not had that done to them before. They're just like,
yeah. The first time it gets done to you and you're playing armor, it's a real big feels bad, man. Like the amount of people who are just like completely crestfallen when
like, so that's a long way of saying who knows if I even make it to 2-0 and make it to that third game if I don't play Republic.
Sure.
I wish that I had Empire in that third game for 2 reasons. The first is simply because the Iden Boba Empire list is a lot more mobile and good at able to flank. Republic kind of needs and wants to stay in one spot, which worked to my disadvantage in this game. Basically, how the battle cards ended up, it was his deck, and based on how they flipped out, I had to either veto. With my last veto, I could choose either Lim Viz or Recover, and ended up vetoing Lim Viz
against Ewoks, right?
Against Ewoks.
Oh, that's definitely the right call.
Yeah, but I wasn't excited about Recover simply because Recover is one of those objectives that doesn't have to be about attrition.
Totally. Yeah.
You know, you can get 3 boxes and not kill anything and still win, which is what happened. I didn't lose any units in this game. But
scouting party is also probably pretty good for him in that regard.
Yeah, it was more good for opening positioning in this situation. Basically there was like 2 pretty sizable line of sight blockers about roughly 8 inches from the center, like on either side of the center. And we ended up on danger close, which that was another, like I had to veto hemmed in, so I didn't have Ewoks in my face on turn 1. And danger close was not my favorite based on how the axis was going to go past these 2 line of sight blockers, but at least it wasn't hemmed in. So he was able to kind of like hide behind both these line of sight blockers and threaten to pick up the middle box while also threatening to melee anything I sent to pick up the middle box without being shot by me.
Yeah.
So it was I spent a lot of turns just taking standbys on some of my best range units instead of shooting because I didn't have any targets. And I couldn't like get around them in a way that was, you know, I could have gone around the far side, but then I wouldn't have been keeping the middle box secure anymore. So yeah, but on turn 6, I still had on the previous turn, on turn 5, since he had 11 activations and I just had 9, he double moved an Ewok unit to base the box on the previous turn 5 and played a 1-pip the next turn to grab it and move away. But I still had like a very obvious path to victory, in that I only needed to get them up to 4 suppression to make that box just not count.
Oh, sure.
Because the Ewoks don't remove suppression at the end of the round, so it's your threshold's 4 instead of 5.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And it was one of those situations where I also had to kill the ATST because the ATST has Inspired 3. So I did end up killing the ATST, but I needed to use Anakin to do that instead of going after the Ewoks. And then all I had to do was shoot the Ewoks 4 times, and I had 6 units with which to do that. One of those units was Echo, who I pulled early in the turn. Echo had his own box, and we were it was another one of this, like, we had like hard dice down in like 7 minutes when this happened. So I'm like, I need to make sure that we finish so that I can get And the time pressure definitely got to me, because I pulled Echo and I'm like, okay, Echo has a box. If I move him out to shoot this unit and start ticking up that suppression count, he's going to be exposed. And
sure.
of course,
and the
like,
ATST is not dead at that point.
The ATST has not died yet at this point,
which is a problem. The only thing that probably could have killed him, I assume.
Correct. So I ended up just like hiding with him. I think realistically, he probably would have been fine anyway, because I had some dodges on Padme, and like the ATST wasn't close enough to him to use the blast thing, and he's got 3 health. And anyway, I ended up not shooting with him. And then but I'm like, I still have 5 units to do this force suppression. You know, I've got some redundancy here. But one of those units I thought was too far away to melee from an Ewok squad, got meleeed. So that takes it down to 4. And then one of the other units that I thought was in range of his box unit was like just out of range. So then suddenly I could only get that unit up to 3 suppression. I almost killed it anyway. It had 1 guy left at the end of the turn, but it wasn't enough. So he had 1 Ewok model with the box with 4 suppression, and he had 3 boxes. So
low profile, pretty good.
Low profile is very good. The handful of times that I managed to actually shoot Ewoks, it was like, I mean, even with a Republic gun line at range 3, it was not like it was, you know, taking 3 hits off the top. You definitely don't kill nearly as much as you think you should, and they often have dodges too. So
yeah.
It was I will say that there is definitely something to the thing I was surprised most by, having not faced Bright Tree Village before, was just the durability of the Ewoks. Like, they're not fragile.
No. I think they're very similar to Pikes, to be honest. Obviously, Pikes have very different offensive profile and kit, like, clearly. But I think when it comes to defense, low profile is not that different than independent dodge.
Yeah, they can't block crits with it. Like, the crits are the big difference.
100%.
But they're also like significantly cheaper than Pikes.
They also have a lot more bodies than Pikes. Like, they can afford to take the chip crit damage, you know, like that Pikes sort of can't. Like, a Pike unit loses 1 or 2 models, and all of a sudden it's like not feeling super great.
Yep.
But I feel like Ewoks, they're like, yeah, okay. like we're not shooting anyways. You know, I don't know.
Anyway, I wish I had Empire in that game specifically, because it would have been much easier to either grab the box, just because Boba Fett's so good at that, and I would have had more activations, so he wouldn't have been able to do the last first box grab. Or B, just like flank around the line of sight blockers with infiltrate or Boba or something, flamethrower. You know,
you also would have had like blast and sharpshooter on several units. Correct. In that regard.
So it's hard to know whether I would have got there if I hadn't pivoted at the last minute. But in that specific game that I got eliminated, I would have much rather had my Empire list.
You needed some arcs. That's what you needed. Just needed some arc troopers. Sharpshooter's pretty good, my dude.
Yep.
If I was playing 501st though, Mike, do I beat triple dark troopers?
No.
Well, there you go.
No.
I start off the tournament 0-1, and I don't ever play the Ewoks. So. Anyway, congrats to Neil for making it to top 8 of Bright Tree Village. My day ended ignobly at 2-1. But I did have a lot of fun. Especially like afterwards. I will say the hangouts were extremely entertaining. The first, on Saturday night, we went to the pool at the hotel, which this is where the duck comes in.
I was gonna say you owe us a duck story.
I do owe you a duck story. There was a mama duck and a baby duck, and the baby duck was, I mean, it was like super tiny.
In the pool?
Yes, in the pool. The baby duck was probably like about the size of this car. It was this tiny little Matchbox car, and they were in the pool. We came to realize while we were hanging out at the pool that the baby duck was stuck in the pool because there were no like ramps on the side. It was just, you know, so the water level was about like 6 inches below.
Okay.
So I don't know whether like the mama duck flew into the pool thinking that it was like, you know, a good place to chill, and then obviously the baby duck followed her in there because that's what they do. And then the baby duck couldn't get out. Anyway, the baby duck was stuck in the pool. The mama duck kept like flying out of the pool to try and get it out, and the baby duck would like, you know, like try and get out.
Oh man, that's so like
sad. Chirping pathetically. It was extremely sad. And then the mama duck would get back in, and then there were of course like 15 people in the pool, and several of them were kids. So like, this poor duck is also like being harassed by people, some of which were like probably trying to help, the baby duck get out of the pool. But like then anyway, eventually Zane, who was the EO, got a pool skimmer, and actually hooked the baby duck out of the pool and rescued it. So, and put it in a bush.
That's so Zane.
It is.
Yeah.
Very,
He
very
was
much
smart
so.
enough to keep it in the net until the mama duck came out of the pool, because as soon as you get free the baby duck, it just goes straight to the mama. So it would have gone right back in the pool if mama duck was still in the pool. But yeah, that's the duck story. But also there's such a thing as a bourbon restaurant, which I did not know. It's a place called Bourbon and Biscuits near Lone Star Open. They had a 34-page menu of bourbons.
Wow.
So I deferred to our own Tim Hannon.
That seems like a smart decision.
Yeah, he is an actual certified bourbon expert.
Oh, that's a thing?
That is apparently a thing. It's called a bourbon steward.
Okay.
So yeah, I let him order my bourbon for me.
I mean, that lines up. He lived in Tennessee for a while. So.
I was gonna, yeah.
Yeah, although bourbon is Kentucky, Tennessee is whiskey.
Oh, that's right. So
So
it doesn't line up at all. I just made that up.
it's topically adjacent. Maybe he's also a whiskey expert. I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it was good times. I really enjoyed seeing everybody and hanging out and chatting. So
Nice.
yeah, it's fun. I'm glad I went.
What are we talking about next? This is an awkward pause.
Kyle just like fell asleep.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. How about the fact that I have a freaking world's invite? How about that,
so
Kyle?
Jay
We talked about
played in
your lonely weekend with
It was not that
Ooh.
long of a pause.
and
Lonely.
Loot. Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. Oh, that was a super
It was
awkward
uncomfortably long. Like
I could not have been the only one feeling that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you recounted this weekend and then stared into the void as if your life was over, and like it was that uncomfortable.
How was your weekend, Jay?
Great. Yeah, so we had a store championship. I went 3-0. I have a little shocking news for everyone. I neither played Ewoks nor Tempest at this event. I'll tell you guys what I played in a second, but I'll get you to my thought process. So first off was I had said on the cast and kind of to myself, like my personal like mantra or whatever or thing was that I'm not going to play Ewoks until my army's painted, and I'm not going to rush myself painting it because I wanted to do a really good job. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to stick to that. I'm not going to play as much as I want to play him. I'm not going to play him. So then Tempest, I really wanted to play Tempest, but before I made my list decision, my biggest fear was that a lot of people were going to want to really play Tempest. We have a lot of Empire players. And so I was like, with Tempest lists, I think with a lot of double or triple heavy lists, they come down to a 50-50. It's kind of a dice roll of who's going to win, because
you mean like in a mirror situation.
Yeah, in a mirror situation. Yeah, it's a 50-50. And so I'm like, okay, I don't want to do 50-50s. Like I want to have the control of winning. So after thinking about that and thinking that there was going to be not only those but dark troopers, there's going to be a lot of like stuff like that, I actually went with Echo Base. And so my list was a rebel officer with commanding presence, 3 vets with their heavy weapon, 3 medium blasters, 2 air speeders with the harpoon and comms jammers, and then 2 of the laser cannons with the overcharge generator, which is the impact one. And so that's what I ended up going with. And
It's a lot of impact.
Yeah,
that is a lot of
and
impact.
a lot of critical.
Yeah, and so and a lot of my thought was, okay, I have to be prepared for armor, but then I also have to be prepared for other lists too, because not everybody's going to be running armor. I need to be able to handle other stuff. And so I get to the tournament. Literally, there's 1 Tempest player and 1 Dark Trooper at the whole tournament. And I ended up, all 3 of my matches were against Gar. So that was interesting. Um,
You probably had a pretty heavy range advantage against
I did.
most standard Gar lists, though.
Yeah, I did.
Um,
And so like my first match was Annie Padme triple bark. My opponent and he had some stuff in there with Boil and Protector
Yep.
and a medic. And so we played key positions on that one. And yeah, it was interesting. The basically what I found with the air speeders and in most of my in all three of my matches was using them a lot as uh depending on the scenario and the timing, the round timing, but using them kind of almost as like a distraction to the other to my opponent, because you have to get rid of them, right? Like if they're coming down on you because they surge to crit, they can flank, they can get you out of cover. So a lot of times I was using them as a distraction, and while they were focusing all their firepower on trying to take down the air speeders, I was just like moving the rest of my army into position for the key positions. Yeah, so the first one was key positions. It was a really great game. And the Barks did a little bit of work. I think he got one of the air speeders. I think that was all I lost during that match. And Anakin Padme, like that was my first time really playing against like an Anakin Padme with heavies and stuff. So he definitely did the lightsaber fire support, and then like just the tokens and the everyone, the dodges and the surges, and it was quite ridiculous. But I made it through that first one. I was like, okay, I got through it. We're okay. We survived. We won. Great. The next one, I ended up facing another Gar list. And this time it was Obi-Wan Padme with 3 ARC troopers. And so that one was even more ridiculous with tokens. And so, that one we actually ended up going recover. And I got lucky. The recover was kind of in a good spot for me where it was really open. So in order for him to even try to get Obi-Wan up there, like literally everything I had could see it. And it's all within range of everything. So he had to play pretty tentatively with Obi-Wan. But then what happened was once I kind of got through the tokens and stuff and we got past that, the just attrition just started to happen, to the clones where I was just like knocking off enough, and then it just, I think I told you guys this in our Discord, but like I find with clones that yeah, all the token sharing's great, and like the first couple rounds they're really strong and together, but as you start to spread out to try to get the objectives, specifically like recover stuff like that, you're spreading out your zones, so sharing isn't as easy anymore. And so once you start doing that, the attrition starts happening for your opponent, where you start losing stuff. And he played a great game, but that just he started spreading out, and I just started like murdering things, and the airspeeder was kind of flying around taking out stuff. The FD cannons are amazing, and we're doing huge work. And I got really lucky on my tables. All three of my tables, I was really, really lucky, and had really great firing lanes for the FDs, so which was nice. And then my final game was, you guessed it, Gar. And this time he had Anakin and Obi-Wan. That was a much tougher list than I thought it was going to be.
you can fit a solid 8 activations
Yeah.
in there.
And they did, and I had 11 activations, so that really helped me having, being able to go like 3 or 4 times after my opponent had already settled down, and so like keeping my air speeders out of range for like an Anakin saber throw fire support for the other 2 games was really, really key. And so they all had tech against armors, so my air speeders were in constant danger, so it was just making sure I played them right. But we actually ended up recover on that one as well. But also again, I got lucky in the box. So there was like this bunker in the middle, and it turned out that the direct middle was on my side of the bunker, so he had to like jump with Anakin and Obi-Wan to like get over into the, to the center objective. And so I think it was turn 2, I ended up playing their hold, and just because he had moved Annie and Obi-Wan up, and it looked like he was going to jump over the bunker to grab the box, and so I literally aims and standbys, and all the FDs had standbys, but in order to get recover, we actually we ended up playing rapid, and so I had rapid on the FDs.
Ugh.
Which I picked both of those.
Mhm.
And so they got in really, really good positions. And so that went right down to the end. I had a vet squad with the middle box and one of my other boxes, and my commander with a box. And the vet squad was moving away, and Anakin dove into them on, this is turn 6, right? But he had to double move. I had moved another squad into melee with him, so I had to use force push on them to then double move with no tokens into that squad, and it was a full five-man squad. And so he ended up getting 4 hits through, and so only killed 4, and so 1 remained with 2 boxes, and there was nothing else he could do about it, because the rest of his stuff was either too far back or already dead. Obi-Wan was trying to chase down my commander, but by that time he had only had 1 box. His box, I had killed the unit, and they dropped it, and he didn't have anyone close enough being able to pick it up, so I was already up to 2-1. And then I think Obi-Wan did end up killing my commander, but I tied him up too, so he didn't have enough actions to kill my commander and pick up the box. So that one was really a really, really tough game. A lot of like, hold on, let me think about this before I make, before I do anything. But yeah, it was 3 great opponents. I had a ton of fun, and I had my Worlds invite, and yeah, I for the list, I said no one is happy about this. That was the name of my list, because I know everybody wanted me to bring Tempest or Ewoks, but I don't know, I just felt like both of those were going to be a thing, and I just really wanted to win. My need to win that tournament was greater than my need to play either of those lists. So
FD cannons are in a really good spot right now.
Yeah,
I think we saw it on stream this weekend, and I think just generally an FD cannon with the overcharge generator, it is the overcharge, right? With the impact, that's the name of it. Yeah. Yep. With the overcharge generator is in a pretty good meta spot, particularly for the cost.
Yeah, I mean, it's what, like 65?
It's pretty cheap.
Yeah. I think the real trick with them is, because of how they're costed now, and because of how you can use them in both Echo Base and regular Rebel lists. They're no longer like before. They used to have to be the focus of your list, and now they're just kind of like an addition to the list,
support piece.
Yeah,
it's almost like a premium sniper team, kind of.
Yeah.
But I think, if you at home are thinking about playing them, placement is huge with them. Like, they've got to be in a good spot, otherwise it's all bad. So making sure that your deployments, the ones you pick, and I also had an 8-point bid, so I've figured for the most part I would have choices, you know what I mean, which is maybe not my deck, but maybe at least being able to pick the side of the table if I chose to be red or whatever, but yeah, it was interesting. I definitely, I think I had recover in my list, because I figured if I faced off against a Tempest force or something like I would have a better spot with recover than they would have. But like once I faced like 3 Anakin lists, I was like, oh God, I wish I didn't have recover in this deck. But it's one of those things. I'm not sure what I would have swapped it out for, but
that's fair. I'm really surprised that the lack of stones people had to play Tempest Force this weekend at all of the events.
Yeah, I don't know if
frankly.
it's stones or just lack of preparation time or what, but yeah, there was only one at Lone Star Open.
Yeah.
Literally one out of 64. So
Man, we had one at ours.
I would like to see it actually go through the gauntlet, you know. That would be nice, because it definitely is good. It just
I would say the ones that I saw people talking about taking, like the one that was at ours, the one that was at LSO, like I don't even think were really the optimized version of it. I think they seem more like, oh hey, this is a thing I can bring now and I'm going to do it. And it's like whoa. Like, let's think about how we clean this up a little bit and make it, and I think we talked about this last week. And I don't even think that some of the lists that I came up with or that we talked about were the optimized versions of the list. I think they were just interesting concepts of like, oh, hey, what could we fit in this, and then you work your way down. I think my plan now is, it's funny, this weekend kind of got me like really hyped for competitive again. And so like I'm going to be going to some more tournaments. I've got one in August and one in September planned and already. And so I think I'm going to go with Tempest here from here on out until I get my Bright Tree painted. But I've already, based on what I'm seeing, like playing a lot of Gar this weekend, I played against a lot of Gar, gave me just ideas on how that list is going to have to operate. I think a lot of us talking when we were talking last week, and I in particular was coming up with insane lists. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to need a couple snipers. Like I'm going to need some peers. And I need to get past some low profile, need to get past dodges. Like there's some stuff like that list is going to need to get past. And I think it has the capability to do it, just not in the iterations that like I was thinking about at the time. Especially with Gar, man, they're real chunky.
Yeah, I lost one unit in over 4 games.
Yeah,
feels good, right?
Yeah, it's I'm gonna need to figure out like what Nova opens in a little over a month, and I need to figure out whether I need to make some adjustments or not. But it's definitely like 60-40 in favor of just playing Republic again over something else.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we don't need to be like make this a Republic podcast, but since I'm here, I actually think they're just like in a really weird spot, and they have been for like a year and a half. Like I definitely think they're probably the best faction right now if you take like a wide picture snapshot of like what has the best tools to deal with things goes. But I'm not convinced that they're the best list, if that makes sense.
yeah, I agree with that.
I definitely like, you can do like the Anakin saber throw thing, and like obviously you did it over the weekend, and like it's a very good thing, and it's not really even like a one-trick pony, and that like you don't have to like spend a lot doing it, but you have to spend just enough that it makes the rest of your list not what it needs to be in the other matchups I've found.
There were definitely times when I wish I would have had barrier instead.
Yeah, I mean, the barrier saber throw conversation is obviously like a big portion of that, but I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is a Republic list that like counters every like good list in the meta, but I don't feel like there's a Republic list that deals with them all
at once.
Yeah. And therefore, like it's really like, I think we saw it this weekend at LSO where like people were obviously like taking armor counters, and and it feels like it's tough to climb out of that rabbit hole when you're fighting a normal list. You don't have all the tools you need to, and obviously that can be extended beyond Republic, but the way that I've been feeling lately is like, a lot of the other factions, particularly Empire and Rebels, have a lot of incidental impact weapons in their list that just are there kind of by accident, almost like a little bit, like there's just a lot of critical and a lot of impact running around in those lists, or ways to generate crits.
I think it's more true of critical than impact if you're
that's
talking about Empire and
that's
Rebels.
fair.
Especially, I mean, like Rebels, I think I don't want to say you have to bring FDs because you don't, and I don't want to ever say that you have to bring something, but FDs are certainly like FDs are without question the most points efficient and useful way to kind of check that impact box.
Yeah, totally.
And I think you're seeing that, in recent events with the most successful Rebel lists having one, if not two FDs in them.
Well, and besides,
I definitely wouldn't call that incidental impact though.
Yeah, and besides just armor, like they are like, okay, I didn't play any armor, and they were just a solid unit to be like I was fire supporting them with the MKs in a couple instances, going, okay, here's 9 black dice with critical, you know what I mean? It's like,
well, that's sort of what I mean by incidental, and that maybe incidental is not the right word, but like
it does other things.
It is impact. Like if you take an RPS in your core unit, like that's what that core unit is doing in this game, right? Like, and if you take an RPS on your, I guess on a Bark, it's like a little different, but that's like kind of the extent of what Republic has access to outside of like Anakin saber throw to deal with the impact situation. Whereas Rebels just like they've got, the vets have critical too, the Mark IIs have critical, they're kind of there, I mean, just natty, sprinkling some FDs in feels pretty low cost. And a lot of the Empire lists are just kind of like running like the marksman Boba Fett stuff has always been good, so they've just always had kind of decent answers, even if it's not amazing.
I don't know that that's enough by itself anymore.
It probably isn't, but it's enough that like you throw one dedicated impact weapon like an FD turret into those lists, and all of a sudden you're feeling like you're probably okay, right? I suspect.
Like an HH-12, you mean?
Yeah, you're like, okay, I throw a stormtrooper in here with an HH-12 along with all the like the marksman stuff from Iden Inferno. You've got the rocket on Boba. If you're taking it, like you have a lot of options. Which I think is good. I think that that's a good thing.
But I think the point that you're trying to make is that the quote unquote anti-armor Republic lists have to make more sacrifices to check that box relative to the Empire and Rebel versions.
100%. I would say that we wouldn't have to if you all just manned up and gave us critical on those snipers back.
Yeah. I actually think it's a good thing because I think Republic is in a really strong place right now. And I think the cost to bring an RPS is not that high. I actually think it's the best like core impact weapon. As far as an impact weapon that has the impact whatever keyword on it from a core unit.
I don't disagree with that assessment. However, I do agree with the premise that I think there is a significant cost to relegating one of your. So here's the thing: every Republic list ever it has to have its core units doing all of its damage. Unlike basically every other faction in the game, in my opinion, the brunt of your damage output is your core units. And when you can't move and shoot with one of probably 5, because let's face it, like you're limited to basically 5.
It's probably not more than 5.
Sometimes you can get to 6, but that means you're probably not running a Jedi, and that's a problem. And relegating 20% of your active damage profile to a cumbersome unit is really bad. And I agree, the unit is very efficient, it is excellent at what it does, But when you start taking attrition, and if they are shooting things that aren't the RPS, you very quickly wish that that squad was not an RPS in just about every game I've ever played. And it's a problem. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say I definitely in my game saw that, where there were points they needed to advance and move up to start playing the objectives, but couldn't because I was in their face with armor and they were trying to like knock the armor down, and they just couldn't have it both ways, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and Republic has never been as good at like moving
Mm.
as the other factions, which I think is frankly fine insofar as they're substantially more durable and get better token generation. So, you know, I think that's a nice like offset. I agree that I think I agree with your premise. I'm not sure that it's a problem from like a interfaction balance perspective.
It's definitely a meta problem that they have right now.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that it's like the other factions have meta issues also with having to like check certain boxes and stuff like that. And I feel like we're in a very like rock paper scissory kind of place right now with the game, and I don't think that's unique to Republic. That's a whole nother topic for discussion.
It feels unique to us, okay? Our feelings are valid too.
Yeah, I know.
I think with that, and this was something I was thinking earlier, and I didn't say it out loud, but I will now, is that this, like what you're saying based off of that and like what we're seeing with things out in the open is, I really think, and we've said this forever, but I'll bring it up again, is like pilot it is very much key now more than ever to this game, and like how you pilot a list is going to be dependent on how it performs now, right? Because of how everything is. So if we're saying like that Tempest thing, right? Like it's a 50-50 roll, and I really don't want to deal with 50-50s right now. I want to, you know, I think a good pilot probably adds like a little bit better win percentage onto that 50-50 roll versus, you know.
I bet you it's probably 70-30. I mean, like, I don't think, you know, when it comes to like mirrors and stuff, like I think if, you know, when you're talking about Tempest and something that's been out, you know, 2 days or whatever,
yeah,
sure, we can call it 50-50. But I mean, you know, I think piloting lists is, I'm gonna throw out a number, you guys can like fight over it if you want. I'm gonna say 85 to 90% of this game. This game is like hugely skill intensive, and it's not it's, I think, yes, it is a game of chance, but I think it is not a surprise to me when we see a lot of the same names coming up over and over and over again at these big tournaments. And yes, Kyle, I'm looking at you. You
could be looking at Austin.
We could be looking at Austin too, you know, and it's just like, I think a lot of this comes down to reps, and you know, when no mirror match is ever 50-50. It's always skill based, and I think it's dangerous to forget that sometimes.
Oh yeah, and I don't mean by the rock paper scissors comment to like degrade that concept at all, because it's still very important for Legion, and still far more emphasized in Legion than most other miniatures games. But I feel like we've gone slightly more into that checking a box in the list building stage than previously. You know, clearly pilot skill still the number one most important thing, obviously. But
yeah, I mean, I think what you're trying to say though is that like if pilot skill is equal,
yes,
you know, which I think is rare, but as you make your way towards the top tables and tournaments, it tends to even out more and more as you progress, right? That's just kind of how tournaments work. Like all of a sudden, if you hit a hard counter in like the later stages of a tournament, it gets tough very quickly.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts, gentlemen?
I think it's a super interesting time. right now in the game. I think there's a lot of great stuff. I would caution everyone from the hot takes on whether, now that seeing that what happened this past weekend and like judging either of the two new list battle forces, because I think one weekend of 4 players playing the newest list that's only been legal for a day is not indicative of what those lists can do and how good or bad that they are. So, I think we still got a lot of games to be played. A lot of people need to like test and put these Tempest and Ewoks on the board and see what they can do with them.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I go after you.
Oh, I was gonna say, even if these lists are not oppressive, busted, whatever, these two battle forces, just by nature of existing within this game, change list building incredibly. One, the Ewoks, just makes it so that you have to bring a sheer number of dice to get through the amount of bodies on the table in the way that the Separatists did when they launched, but to a like much higher degree.
Mm-hmm.
And Tempest continues to push the armor envelope in a way that, like, I think they both of those lists, I think, could be. First of all, I don't think they're subpar. I think that they're average at worst, and Tempest, I think, is very good. I think both of them could be very good, but I'm like pretty confident Tempest is very good. And I don't have any doubt in my mind about that. But even if they weren't, like, they just the things that they do to the warp the game is almost independent of how they play on the table, to me. If that makes sense.
Well, it's the same conversation about Dark Troopers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's, we talk about gatekeeping, right? But they serve to require you to do like a certain thing with your in ways that are restrictive of list building, like before you even show up, just because of the specter they create, even if you never actually like face that specter. So,
and I guess, like, to your point earlier about like rock, paper, scissors, is like, I do think I've been feeling more and more, like a lot of people have been asking me, like, Mike, what do you do when you face an armor list with your 501st list? I'm like, I chose to not consider that before the tournament. I chose to intentionally not check that box. And I think, going back to the like games of chance conversation that we're sort of alluding to before, is that like sometimes when you go like all in at like a poker tournament or whatever, you take a chance on a hand, and that there's things that it can't beat, right? And I think as the game, I'm not sure I personally want the game to feel like that, but I do think that there is some level of a reasonable expectation that we all are going to have as the game continues expanding, that it is going to feel more and more like that. We can definitely, I'm going to yell as loud as I can to try and hold it back. Not that I have any like actual input on that, but I will yell to the clouds and hope someone hears me. But I definitely think that, I don't know if this is what you meant by interesting, Jay, but I definitely feel like at this point in time, you can't check all of the boxes. And you have to decide which ones you're going to discard before you even get to the tournament. And you have to put your bet down before you even get on the plane now. Which is a significant change in how this game has worked, because it's never really worked like that before. And I definitely think that there's a little bit of a mindset change that basically every competitive player is going to have to deal with, at least in the short term, where we're talking about, you have to hedge your bets. And sometimes the right play is just to take a better list that folds to some things, in the hopes that you dodge them. And part of winning a tournament is sometimes you just dodge the lists you don't want to play, and that's a big deal. I mean, like, Luke Cook's a very good player. He did not really tech for darks at Worlds, and he got rewarded because he didn't play against them, and I'm sure he could have taken that tournament down anyways. Luke's amazing, whatever. But like, sometimes it's just like it's no different than getting into a position in a game where the dice have to go your way.
Yeah.
It's just it happens far earlier and it feels worse.
It feels worse because it happens earlier.
Yes, yeah. It feels like it's outside. It's not part of the game because it happens so early, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think it's they always have those like decision triangles where it's like you can have only 2 of these and you have to pick 2, right? And you can't have that. That's like where we're at.
Cheap and fast, but not good.
Yeah. And I think it's like armor, good against armor, good against force users, or good against like I don't know, what the other
like
maybe
mass
armies or something. Yeah. And you can only pick 2. Good luck, And I would say that like that definitely happened to me. I was not teched for force users and ended up playing 3 force users, and luckily in all 3 of my games, the last one I think might be an exception, but had a good enough game plan to deal with it. And I think the last one was just a little bit of luck towards the end, but like yeah, I knew what I was doing and going, well, I'm not going to be good against force users, but I don't think I'll face that many. And then force user, which happens. But yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing for the game.
I do think T-47s are actually pretty good against force users.
Considering they can't
cannot
interact back with them at all.
Yeah, generally.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Yes. I think the Anakin saber throw thing, because it's Anakin with the saber throw with the fire.
I think that's the one exception, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. No, they're not good again. Yeah, that's I guess more what I meant was he in particular is the one force user that a lot of people are using outside of Ahsoka. Yes. So like he's the one that I was like, well, I'm not gonna be good against that, but I don't anticipate I'm gonna see that 3 in a row. I was just like, what is happening?
I feel like my take a few weeks ago after the various, I mean, it's been an accumulation of things, right? The deflect nerf, the points, the choke nerf, etc. But of Anakin being like the only good force user left, I feel like that feels a little bit less hot after this weekend.
We disagree greatly on this point.
Okay.
I think people are so caught up with the surge to block on defense thing with the dodge with deflect. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this last weekend was like a great example of that being an extremely huge deal. So.
Yes, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that I think without it, force users can be insanely oppressive in ways that you can't actually deal with them with a normal list. I think it was a good change, and yes, there might be a world where several of those force users maybe need to come down 5 to 10 points. I'll give you that, but I think for the health of the game, it was a great thing, for the most part, that you can deal with a force user in your lines and like feel like you can actually kill them. And I do think that like I don't think people have, for the most part, adapted to, let's call it, the like new fragility of force users. I mean, they were fragile before, no doubt.
They were extremely fragile before already.
They were definitely fragile, but a good player with them could make them basically invincible against like 80% of the field.
I don't think that's true at all.
That's because you're one of them.
I've lost a lot of force users over the
I know. But
I've lost
as
a lot
someone,
of games against people that don't have force users with my own force users.
I understand, but as someone who I think I'm pretty good at the game, playing against you with a force user felt like an impossible game to win.
That's fair.
And I don't think that should be the case. Frankly, I think that's a little ridiculous.
I'll just play Anakin now. He still gets surgeon melee.
Yeah, but I mean, Anakin's not really a.
No, I know he's not like Vader, or I mean, he's not really. He's a defensive force user. He might be the only like truly defensive force user. I guess Obi-Wan is in there too, but
yeah, and I think that's the reason I'm actually kind of okay with them surging to block, because they do very different things than traditional force users. The traditional force user is a scalpel who really its only way of getting value is like killing your opponent's units or zoning out areas of the board. And Anakin and Kenobi they zone, but not to the same level as those other force users.
They don't have the splashy offensive abilities of the other force users.
Yeah. But I think, as people continue to get better with force users, I think that this is going to be fine. Maybe they need to be cheaper. I don't know. I definitely think that would be okay for some of them. But like Operative Vader's still good. Ahsoka obviously still good enough. I think, I don't know. I think people are just choosing not to play Operative Luke right now because they have Ahsoka instead. She's cheaper.
Nah, Operative Luke's bad.
No.
You're wrong. A little bit.
That I know.
You're wrong. But I don't name a force user that is actively bad.
Actively bad?
I challenge you to put a force user on the table that is D or F tier on a tier list.
Commander Luke.
No. He's at least C.
I'm trying to remember. I wrote this article. I'm trying to remember what tier I put him in. I think that it was C. So I might agree with that.
I'm playing Commander Luke in competitive tournaments presently.
How are you doing in those competitive tournaments?
Great.
It's a very different format though.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. I think my issue with the deflect nerf is simply that it affected the force users so unevenly. And I'm not even talking about like the Republic keywords that got exempted from it or block
sure.
or anything like that. I'm simply talking about the fact that I think it's really two linked things. And the first is that it emphasized the existence of training slots on force users, and more specifically the need to take into the fray. Secondly, as a result of that, I think it affected negatively a lot of the force users that were already sort of like not being played a lot. Commander Luke, Dooku. I think Jedi Luke was kind of already on his way down after the dodge spam nerfs from last year. And those are basically like the 1 to 0 training slot force users are the ones that were affected the most negatively.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of a symptom of the fact that to me, all the deflect nerf did was like make the training slot less interesting for force users. That's like the primary effect of it to me. But this is like a whole nother discussion.
That's what we're here for. We're here for a whole nother discussion.
I know, but we've already been here for like an hour and 20 minutes. So.
Kyle's ready to sleep again, guys.
Didn't you see him stare into the void and question his whole life earlier with that awkward pause? Like, it's so awkward. I was considering cutting it out. That's how bad it was.
Yeah. Like, that's why I interjected. I don't know. I was like, are we gonna like what's happening?
Well, part of me
guys?
just wanted to see how long it was going.
Yeah, I feel you.
I was fondly remembering the bourbon. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I feel you on the trading upgrades. I definitely feel like that's got more to do with everything costing $1 billion in that slot now. Personally, but
that's also fair.
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't seen offensive push since it went up to 6, like anywhere.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that was a mistake. But
I agree. I think tenacity was too, frankly.
I'm talking about all the training upgrades.
Yeah.
I don't think they should have moved at all.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they were around and making things varied was fine, and now we just don't see them played because they're not good enough at their current price points, and I think that sucks. But
Yeah, I really wish they had taken a different approach to those and did maybe more like a battle force. I think we talked about that on here, like a battle force price adjustment. So like, hey, if you're going to use this upgrade in this battle force, it actually costs this much versus
Well, and with the training upgrades, it almost seemed like it was they did the sweep of like, what are the most popular upgrades in the game? Let's increase those costs.
100% that. Yeah.
Without kind of thinking of like looking into the why, and the nuance of why those were popular, and like there's nothing else that's similar to tenacity. And that's a structural thing. That's not a tenacity being too good thing. It's like it's the melee unit training upgrade.
Yeah, it basically put Wookiees in the ground.
Yeah.
Like single-handedly.
Well, it wasn't just, a 2-point increase to tenacity that did that. It was the scale changes. Offensive push was another popular upgrade for them.
Well, that's what I mean. Like each one was an extra 4 points.
It was it was a double whammy for Wookiees. But it'd be nice to see those go back down. But I think the whole like end of the fray force user training slot discussion is related, but also separate from the training slot increases. Anyway, you guys got any final thoughts?
Why do you ask that question if you want us to stop?
I have a controversial one that I can lead us on.
Well, usually that's a cue to be like, say if you have any like quick things to say before we close out.
I do it.
Open like a 15-minute to 20-minute.
I'm going. Okay, I'm going to say something. We're just going to leave it hanging for this episode. Okay.
All right.
Boy.
I don't think the best Ewok list is a Bright Tree list.
Is it an Ewok list if it's not a Bright Tree list? Or is it just a Rebel list with Ewoks in it?
Yeah, a Rebel list with Ewoks in it. I don't think Ewoks are best in Bright Tree.
Okay.
Boom.
All right, that's fair.
Cool.
The end. Okay, bye. Bye, everybody.
We are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Mike.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Stay cool, Fruit Mat.